Adding crushed rock, usually limestone, thus the name lime, is the most common and best way to raise soil pH in both the lawn and the garden. Because these products are naturally alkaline substances that can neutralize the excess hydrogen molecules in soils, which are responsible for acidity.
And notice, watch this as I hit it. It's like flour. Because this stuff is actually pulverized limestone, as my kids like to call it, chalk rock.
Yeah.
My deepest apologies to those of you who struggle with dry sounding verbiage and definitions. Generally speaking, there are three main types of lime, and a solid fourth option that isn't made from rock, so I guess it's not exactly lime. Dolomitic lime is a calcium magnesium carbonate. It comes from a crushed rock called dolomite, not limestone. And it's used when soil testing shows that your soil is on the lower end of the scale on calcium, or especially magnesium. Because of the magnesium in dolomitic lime, it takes less of this product to raise the pH in the soil. Now, agricultural lime also goes by the name garden lime. It's a calcium carbonate. Note the omission of magnesium in the name. And it's commonly used when your soil tests show that you already have enough or too much magnesium in your soil.
In my opinion, this is not garden lime. Look at that. There's 10% magnesium in there. Derived from dolomite. This is dolomitic lime.
The reason for this is because you don't want to add too much magnesium to the soil. Too much can harm your lawn, and agricultural lime doesn't have magnesium in it, or at least not a lot.
All right, with garden lime, you got to be careful. Both bags say garden lime. But here's the deal. This one is not actually garden lime. This one is. This is all labeling problems that you, as a purchaser of products, need to understand. Flip it over. This one actually is garden lime. And you know that because you turn it over and you can see calcium carbonate, 87%. Magnesium content, 1.3.
Because it doesn't have magnesium in it, you'll probably have to use 50% more of this stuff by weight compared to dolomitic lime to raise pH the same amount. Now, the third one, hydrated lime, which is generally more of a powder, can also be used to move the needle very quickly, but it isn't usually healthy for the soil organisms in your lawn. Those ones that you want, like worms and other microscopic bugs that plant lives thrive on. If you use this stuff, you'll also have a greater chance at damaging your lawn through less than perfect application technique. Hydrated lime is processed to convert calcium oxides into calcium hydroxides before you apply to the lawn. So it's not just a powdered version of garden lime. It's different. Now, the fourth one here is oyster shell. It's another option to use as a naturally sourced alternative to ground limestone, or garden lime. Oyster shell is roughly 39% calcium, and it can also raise the soil pH. However, the cost will be likely much higher per application. This option is more frequently used in gardening and on small scale, and in my opinion, it's not something I'd add to my lawn, even though I do like adding organic and naturally sourced products. Because the most common option for pH increases is also naturally sourced, I choose that. It's just rock, pulverized.
As for how they look, it's pretty much the same, so long as it's been pelletized. So this is the dolomite lime. Lime doesn't actually look like this. That's the pelletization process. Let's call it a coating that puts it all together for easy spreadability. Now the limestone one, this is the one that I personally actually want, looks pretty much the same because it's the same coating, or at least close enough to the same.
If you're reading between the lines, you'll see that magnesium and calcium are the main drivers for pH changes. These are nutrients that we add to the lawn in volumes that will neutralize enough hydrogen atoms to decrease soil acidity.
Now, crushed limestone, so lime, you can get it uncoated and then it becomes much harder to work with. Let me show you. Here you go, here's a bag. And if we look at this, is the back of the bag. In addition to limestone, the following naturally occurring minerals may be present. Calcium, magnesium carbonate, crystalline silica. That's why it's not 100% calcium carbonate. It's like 87%, like from the bag that I showed you over there. It's like a powder. So without putting the pelletization on it, this is very, very hard to work with in terms of like spreading it on a lawn. You can, but it's simply harder, way harder. Here, let me flip it around. There you go, limestone right there. A 50-pound bag. Look at that. Boring as garbage. It's just limestone.
Now, a misunderstood fact about these nutrients is that in the presence of air, oxygen, carbon dioxide, both calcium and magnesium are water soluble. So over time, these inputs will leach out of the soil and pH will start declining again. Not only that, but the actual grass growing in your lawn will use some of these same nutrients throughout the growing season, leaving less in the soil for acid neutralization. That's why many people who apply lime to their lawns do it every year, year in, year out, with little thought to the exercise. People like this, it's no big deal how fast acting a particular lime product is if they have to apply it each and every year.
All right, so that right there is about 24 pounds in the spreader. I kind of want to get almost up to 50 pounds. I'm gonna have to do this twice, but I cleaned the store out of the bag, so I gotta go buy more, maybe apply it next week or so before the next rain hits.
There will always be some trailing effect in the second year, and the new stuff added will slowly take over, even if it's slower acting. For super speed, hydrated lime is fast, but not something I recommend because it's just not as safe to use for regular lawn owners. A better option for fast-acting pH adjustment is to use either garden lime or dolomitic lime that has finer particle size. As particle size gets smaller, it could pass through finer and finer and finer sieves. When the sieves jump from a 10 to 20 mesh size or finer, then lime starts acting notably quicker in the soil. However, as we jump to a finer 100 mesh sieve, then the liming product starts working significantly faster. In my experience though, it's somewhat hard for me to find lime that doesn't pass through 50 mesh sieves. So you're probably not going to have trouble either if you look for something good. For comparison, the bulk of hydrated lime should pass through a 200 mesh sieve. Yet another reason that that stuff works so fast. For me and my lawn, I know I need to adjust somewhat quickly if I want my lawn to respond to a better growing environment this spring. But because I'm applying in the cool weather of late winter, extreme speed isn't necessary. I'll be going with whatever garden lime I can find in my local garden supply store. Now, if cost is a concern to you, then usually a slightly less fine particle size can save some cash at the register. Now, I've linked in the description below to a cheaper, slower acting lime with a slightly larger particle sizes. However, you are unlikely to really notice much of a difference to the naked eye, in my opinion, on how it works. Also, because I know my soil type, a sandy loam on the sandier side, I know that I don't need as much lime to alter pH. Clay soils tend to need more lime than sandy soils to adjust pH upwards. Make sure to see my video showing how to identify your soil type. I've linked to it also from the description below. And I also know that my soil pH currently is sitting at around 5.4 because I just ran a mail-in laboratory test and I filmed the whole thing. That video is also linked below. That test told me a lot about my soil, but the thing I really needed to know was pH and my magnesium content. In my test, my magnesium concentration in my soil was spot on. So in an effort to not add too much magnesium, I don't want to apply much, if any, dolomitic lime. If possible, I want straight calcitic lime, otherwise known as garden lime or agricultural lime. Crushed Tums, really.
Now when you put the lime on the ground, you want to do it just before a rain. You also want to do it onto a dry ground. You don't want this stuff sitting on the leaf blades. It could burn the leaf blades. You get some damage to your actual grass tissues. I'm expecting a lot of rain tomorrow morning, but probably not in the middle of the night. So I'm going to run the sprinkler briefly to get it down to the soil, and then expect the rain to do the rest of the work tomorrow.
According to the University of Georgia Extension, their agricultural and environmental services laboratories, it takes roughly 8,500 pounds of lime per acre to move pH of the root zone up 1 point. Now this is based on the middle of the road LBC, or lime buffer capacity calculation. Don't worry about it. This is a calculation that describes how much a soil will resist pH adjustment when liming. And it's a measurement which almost no yard owner will ever know about their own lawn soil. It's best just to use the middle average, LBC, which is what I've done. Dividing those per acre numbers by 43.5 gives us 195 pounds of garden lime per 1,000 square feet to raise pH in the soil by 1 point. Now, because I have sandier soil, I could probably round down a bit. Let's say 10%. That brings us to 176 pounds per 1,000 square feet. And because my lawn would still perform a lot better if I got my pH up to 6.2, I could round down even more to save some money. 10% takes me down to 158 pounds per 1,000 square feet. In doing this, I'd still probably see some serious benefits in liming. I don't need to move it a full point. Now, if I had clay soil, then I'd probably have to round up by 10% or so. And if I wanted to overshoot, expecting the liming to wear off over time, I'd also round up a little bit more. If I used a dolomitic lime, which changes pH more aggressively than straight garden lime, if I used it because my magnesium levels were low enough on my soil test, then I could further multiply by 0.66 to get a rule of thumb dolomitic lime application rate. In my case, 2/3 of 158 pounds would be 104 pounds, which is how much dolomitic lime I would use if my magnesium levels were low to start off with. I won't do that though, because I don't want to inject that much magnesium into the lawn, or at least my lawn. Now, if I knew for a fact that my LBC was high, I could then adjust up the rate by 10% to counteract my soil's increased resistance to pH change, or down by 10% if I knew that my LBC was low. Most people will never know this though, so using the middle of the road estimate is probably best, and it's what I'm doing. Another important consideration is the maximum amount of time that you can or should apply to your lawn at any one time. Rule of thumb is that you never apply more than 50 pounds per 1,000 square feet in any one application. So getting back to my case, I need to add roughly 158 pounds of calcium carbonate to get my desired pH in the grass root zone, the upper 8 inches of soil. That means I can't get to 158 pounds without applying 4 times, unless I break the 50 pounds per application rule of thumb. 3,000 pounds per acre is also the rule of thumb for an annual maximum dose, which translates to 71.4 pounds per 1,000 square feet in any given year. Now, if I abide by those rules, then it will take me over 2 years to get my full 158 pounds of calcitic lime onto the lawn. Now, we're not talking this one, we're talking the front lawn. For me, I want to front load 50 pounds quickly. I'll apply 25-ish pounds now, and then 25-ish pounds again in a month or so. And then a few months later, I'll add 22 or so pounds to get to the annual maximum. Now after that, every 6 months, I'll continue adding approximately 36 pounds per application. This will take me a little over 2 full years to get all 158 pounds of calcitic lime down onto the lawn. And by that time, the first dose of lime will surely have worn off or leached away, been used up, etc. So I'll likely enter a pattern of applying 36 pounds of lime every 6 months after that for just about every year forever. This is why people who apply lime do it regularly, every year, without any thought or measurement. Once they realize it's necessary for the lawns, then it becomes the thing to do at the same time or times of the year for that yard owner for as long as they own the yard. Buying fast-acting, expensive lime may speed up the initial pH increase, but over the long term, it just doesn't make any sense financially. You can also see how using dolomitic lime is beneficial. You can adjust pH faster with the same amount of lime, or you can adjust pH at the same rate using less product. but only if your soil's magnesium levels are on the low end of the spectrum. Knowing your soil's current pH is the first step to doing things the right way, and knowing the magnesium level is nearly just as important. And that's why I think doing a soil test first, before you start blindly fertilizing, is important. It's probably the smartest thing to do. Your lawn may actually improve with pH adjustment alone better than it would with simple excessive fertilization rates. Not only that, but liming products are fairly cheap. Soil sulfur too, if your pH happens to be too high, compared to many fertilization plans and fertilization products. Here on this channel, I've combined my pH adjustment videos into a playlist, which I've linked to from the description below. I recommend that you take a look at those. Otherwise, you can see this video linked up here in the corner for my expanded thoughts as to why I think soil tests are important. I'll never tell people that they are required, but their level of importance cannot be refuted for yard owners that want to maintain the best lawn they can for the least amount of effort. Thank you very much for watching, and please leave any comments down below.